How's it going, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Here's the Craic podcast. We are joined today by Kevin.
Yes.
And Jason.
Yes.
Also known as the Irish Shite Talk podcast.
Yeah.
How are you guys?
It's good you're allowed to say it on podcasts. We're not allowed to say it on radio.
Oh, are you not? No?
They make us say it's like white talk.
Which sounds very racist.
Or right talk. Which
Right,
sounds worse.
even worse.
I was going to say, because I remember when I was messaging you the other night, it was an Irish history podcast is what you have on Instagram, and I was like, probably because Instagram was like, can't be using shite.
It's only when you try and pay for ads on Facebook, they don't like it.
Right.
Yeah. Everything gets cancelled.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't know how we got around that. I think it's called the Irish History Podcast.
Yeah. So you're known by many different aliases, pretty much.
Which is
We're
great.
we're not known by many.
Yeah.
But you two boys are in marketing. That's like marketing 101. Have several different names.
Yeah,
Don't-
exactly. Just
yeah.
cast a wide net
Make
and
it as
you'll
impossible
capture
to find
everybody.
as possible.
But for those who are maybe listening and unsure of like what you guys, the podcast and stuff you guys do, and even you guys are comedians as well. But like, what's your podcast? If someone was to land on it today, like what is it about?
One of us will research a story in Irish history or an Irish person that's moved abroad at some point in history, and then just tell it to the other person without them like knowing anything about it.
Right.
So they're listening to it like the audience, basically. They get the knowledge for the first time at the same time as the listener.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they can just interject and take the piss whenever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you find? Because I know even with like what we do, like we get into like a stage where we plan meticulously. So like if Tommy's like doing a topic, we'll vaguely know what topic Tommy's doing. So like if he's ever had any like sort of times where you've hit record and say you've told a story and there's just nothing comes from it, or is it always kind of good reactions?
I don't think we've ever had that, have we?
No, I think one or two times we've had to pretend that we didn't know a little bit about the story.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of like, once you research and stuff, like I've been pissed off sometimes when he's after like stealing a topic from me. Even though we wouldn't tell each other what we're researching, we're like, I have like 5 pages of notes on that.
Yeah.
I just can't do it.
But for the most part, you're right, because they go on for like an hour and a half, so you get something out of it. I know, yeah, they take ages to. But
We
it's-
do 40 minutes and we're like gasping. We're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And
let's
during
go.
the pandemic, because I was living over in Texas, so we were doing it remotely.
Right.
And that was like just 4 hours.
Oh,
of
yeah.
just like
Zoom.
drinking and just.
And the drinking was fine, except for you were Texas, Dublin, so it's like what 8-hour time difference, so it's
6,
perfectly.
So someone was always steaming during the day.
Someone's always streaming in the morning. Yeah, that's it. Or like
Nice.
drinking
Yeah.
until like 2 a.m. Just
The,
it was-
the
yeah.
screenshots are mad because it's just like just complete dark on one side.
Oh my
And
God.
it's just like blinding morning light in the other.
The thing I was going to ask you was like, how did this come about? Because like there's not really many people doing that sort of storytelling side of things, but like, how did the podcast come about? Like, did you guys know each other beforehand, or?
Yeah, for a few months, I think it was. We started doing comedy, and we hadn't ran into each other. I guess we'd been out of the country at the same time, and we'd moved home and ran into each other at an open mic. Went to go see David O'Doherty, and we were like, you know how everyone needs a podcast? Sure, you know it yourselves. But especially in comedy, that like every comedian's like, you just have to have one. It doesn't matter what it is, you just have to do it. And we were like, well, we could if we were just going to sit down and just chat to each other. It's like every comic just does that. And have like, we'll have to have some sort of like a hook. And in hindsight, it's way too much work and it's way too much research. And I'm listening to all of my favorite podcasts are just two lads sitting down just shooting the shit. And like I have to do like 3 weeks of work for every like 1 hour of content.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, we say that it's like you look at it, it's not 3 weeks of like me meticulously sitting down researching it. It's like 2 hours when I'm steamed here. It's like 4 hours when I'm sober the next day. It's nothing for a week and a half. And it's like 10 minutes before we record.
But then the benefit of it is afterwards you can talk to people, you can go up to people at a party and be like, man, do you know Edward Carson? And then they say no, and they're like, well, that was a waste of my life. That was, because at the minute we're doing this whole thing about Birdie Ahern, and there's all these things coming up, and you know, day-to-day life, and people are asking, everyone's chatting about like, you know, whatever the Devonish or whatever's happening. I'm like, man, what about in 1992 when Ben Dunn went to Florida and took a load of cocaine, and then 18 years later the teacher got to step down? But we're always like 30 to 400 years behind current events, and no one wants to talk about those bits. But I think the thing, when we were both in the comedy scene at the same time, people used to mistake us. Like, we looked more like back then, but people would come up to me and talk about gigs that he'd done, and then vice versa.
And I probably shouldn't have shaved.
These are very
Very like if we weren't in the same room at the same time.
These aren't related.
No.
Not that you know
I've
of.
had to start dressing more appropriate. I just dress like a football fan now. And he dress like an adult.
Yeah, but
He wears his hat front ways and I put mine backwards.
that's the only difference.
Your glasses are more square.
Yeah,
More
yeah.
round. Yeah.
And then
He's both turned up the same. You're like, God,
Have you
not
been
again.
squaring
yeah.
my glasses again?
we've got like Ant and Deck contracts. We can only wear certain types of glasses.
I always sit on the left.
So like, were you both in? You both said you were in the comedy scene. Like, were you in that for a while before you like ran into each other, or was like comedy sort of something new that you had taken up?
I think pretty new for both of us.
Yeah, it was only a couple of months, but then you're not getting that many gigs back then. I remember one stage early on, we were like starting to become friends, you know, and we were at an open mic, which is like one of the shittest open mics you could be at. And the normal guy who ran it was away, and there was he put this deputy in charge. I've never seen such little amount of power go to a guy's head so quickly. But we were all bored, so I was like, right, I'll go up and do your set, and you go up and do my set. And we did that, and then your man pulled us aside afterwards and was like, don't you ever make a mockery of this club again. And by club, I mean it was like the back of some shitty open mic. Like, it doesn't exist anymore. But
and he was doing like Tai Chi and stuff as well, so he was all about like meditation and peacefulness. And he was, what did he say? He said, don't you ever come in here and make a fucking idiot of me ever again.
but he pulled us aside because he didn't want to look like an absolute lunatic in front of everyone else.
But people could
like,
hear him still.
Yeah.
That's how angry he was.
Oh my God.
Yeah. God, I forgot about that. Yeah,
he's a good man. But yeah, that's how we met then, and then we started. I think once you hit 30, every Irish man suddenly becomes obsessed with like Irish history,
right?
And we use this as an excuse to start reading loads of stuff.
Yeah.
What's been like some of your favourite stories like you've looked into from starting the podcast that stand out?
Well, we did Edward Carson when we were up here. There's statues outside Stormont, and he's an interesting man. And my favourite fact for that one was when Northern Ireland was created, no one liked the name Northern Ireland because it implies, even for the Unionists, it implies like the north of another country, and they didn't really have a name. And one of the names that was floating around for a while was Carsonia. So that's what this place was going to be called for like a couple of weeks. And there's articles from
it build on Sims or something.
Yeah, but it'd be like Ireland, England, Wales, Scotland, and Carsonia. It's just But there's newspaper articles from the time calling it.
That you come and it's very underwhelming. Carsonia. Sounds
really
like aggressive.
Yeah. Welcome to Carsonia.
Yeah. But we shot the load too much in the first season because we had like. We didn't know it was going to continue this long. We were like, we'll just start a podcast and it might last like 10 episodes or that. And like we recorded the first season with one microphone between the two of us, just in a windowsill because hanging up the curtain around it was the only way to like dampen any sound. And like both just hunched over into one of those like little blue Yetis. It sounded terrible. We've pulled that all off the internet now. That's all gone. Yeah. That's just up on the Patreon. So it's if you want to pay for really bad content. But you had some great episodes there. Like your man, I'm from Carlow, and there's a guy I've never heard of before, William Desmond Taylor, who went to America and he became like a famous actor. And then left. He became like a famous guy in New York, just around the scene. He married like into a rich family, then deserted them, and then like 10 years later, the ex-wife who just got deserted is just in the cinema with her daughter, and then he goes, "That's your father," and he's playing like Tarzan or something. And then he went on. He directed like the first Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, and then he went off and fought in like World War II. I was like, I shouldn't have wrote that episode when I was like 26. That's what I should do now until like make a TV show.
But like in terms, was Irish history always something that you guys were interested in, or was it literally just hit 30 and was like, we've got this cool story to tell? Like, did you know the podcast was going to start up with just telling like Irish history stories, or was it just your first episode happened to be an Irish history story and you thought this is banging, we'll keep this going, like a theme?
We knew it was going to be Irish history stories, but I don't think we really knew anything about it. Like, I go back and listen to the early episodes sometimes, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like I can tell.
We've had this
I don't
discussion
know.
recently, actually.
We
went back and listened to this couple
you're
hours.
saying
It's cringe. It
things,
can be. You're like,
and I know by how I'm saying, I was like, you don't understand what you're saying, and that's But we learned a lot then from researching it. But in the first 12 episodes, or 10 or 12 episodes, we didn't have a name for the show. We knew it was going to be an Irish history show, but we never actually say the name in the show
Yeah.
because we recorded like 10 episodes before actually figuring out what we call it.
Yeah.
And then we settled on the name that, you know, a 16-year-old child would come up with. But
It's stuck.
it's stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
It's stuck, and people still ask us like, how did you manage to get the name before like anyone else took it? It's like, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
You're just gonna get banned from everything.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
The algorithm doesn't like it.
Yeah. I mean, the aim of owning Shy Talk Incorporated someday, I think that's worth
Yeah.
it. But
That's definitely niche, like, innit?
yeah. Although not that, I think there were like 4 or 5 other podcasts have come and gone. They're also called Shy Talk. It's a common enough name if you're like,
And you shut them down.
we outlasted
You
all of
lawyered
them.
up.
Yeah.
Well, we were doing with whoever like hosts the podcast. We were chatting to them, and they had like a marketing someone to go on to like just for like 20 minutes, and they're like, "You should do all of these things." Like, we've been trying that for ages. It's like this is not going to help.
Yeah.
But feck, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying right there?
Something about how successful we were.
Well, yeah.
But I like the idea of lawyering up, or like sometimes people will comment stuff about like, you know, there'll be a mistake on the Instagram page or something, and someone will comment being like, "Oh, bet someone's getting fired for that in the morning."
Yeah.
I like the idea that people think that we can afford lawyers or marketing teams, right? It's just like me or him, like any
I
mistake.
can't believe you guys actually run your own Instagram account.
Yeah.
Who else would do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it something you deal with then, like a bit like hate online and stuff?
No, it's usually positive stuff.
Positive,
It's kind
yeah.
of-
This was sort
that's
of
good.
thinking like it's, you know, like the likes of us, we're putting ourselves out there for hate, but I suppose you can't hate like history, like you're.
You get what
Actually,
I've got.
pretty easily, yeah.
It's always like 1 or 2 little small lines, and it's never like it's terrible. It's just like a bit too giggly. You're like, what does that mean?
I'll never laugh again.
Don't write that on the internet. Come up to me, have a pint with me, and just explain what you don't
Yeah.
like about me.
Yeah.
There's some really 3-word scaling, like band microphones is one of the ones we got recently, and I was like, that cuts deep. That cuts deep. But then I suppose like that's what I was going to say, like with regards to like the hate side of things, like because you're obviously like discussing, you know, Irish history, and there's people out there who will inevitably be like, I know more than these guys, or you know, you need to be like really well informed. Do you know what I mean, to start talking about stuff like that in case someone comes on, well, you don't actually know anything about that, or that's factually incorrect.
I think most people, not most people, I shouldn't say that. I think a load of our listeners know more than me about like history.
Yeah.
It was like proper historians, or like we just like the easy side of it, because
Yeah.
if they want to go and listen to a serious thing, there's others like podcasts for that.
Yeah. But I'd say we definitely, the people who know more about stuff than we do, and there are many of them, tend to be much nicer, and they'd be like, "Did you ever read this?" Or like, "Oh, you've talked about this, but there's actually this other stuff."
Yeah.
It's the people who know nothing. The people who know nothing bar, you know, 1916 was a thing that happened. Those are the people that'll like give out to you the most and call you like wrong or whatever, because they don't understand anything about Irish history.
Yeah.
For the most part, if people are smart about stuff, they'd be like pretty happy to teach other people about it.
Yeah.
But
It's more of a case of people wanting, because we were like running the comedy club down in Temple Bar, and we'd always say it on the podcast for like drop in, come have a look. But then that just means like, now some people would come to the club as well, but a lot of people just come down on the street and just want to have a chat and just be like, "Oh, great episode! I want to talk about this or that." Like, we're trying to work here, and to be honest, even if we weren't, I'm like, I'm not entertaining this at the minute.
What like sort of opportunities has like come from the podcast? Because obviously you guys were doing comedy, started the podcast to like obviously hit a broader audience. Like a lot of comedians, I think it's kind of like the route to getting more people, access more people is starting a podcast, or obviously social media. But like, what are some of the things that have came from starting the podcast, which you're like, holy moly, didn't think this would happen?
we've traveled all over Dublin, and you know, it's a nice north, south, and we've gotten to do like cool. We did. I'm from Dundalk, and the Dundalk Jail House is kind of a music venue these days. And we got to do a live episode in there for the centenary of there's a prison break during like the Civil War, so we got to do that in the prison in front of like a lot of people there, that was something. It's always stuff that you wouldn't have thought would have happened when we started out, but you get to do gigs in interesting places. We were in one of the 1916 signatories. Did a gig in his house, and hopefully we'll get out to that haunted island. You just get to do
Haunted Island.
What?
What?
Yeah, that's
What?
we want to go for Halloween. Is it Skull Island? No, Spike Island.
Spike Island.
Where's it?
Prison
Cork.
Island,
Right.
of Cork.
Yeah.
And what?
It's like the Irish Alcatraz back in the day.
Right.
Yeah,
okay. explain more about this. I'm interested now.
This
is a hook for an episode now. We met someone who ran it's basically a prison island off the coast of Cork. And there was a story, one of the many stories that came out of the place is that there was a prison riot / prison break once, and all the lads got up onto the roof and they were there for whatever, a day or something, and the riot only stopped when they got your man's mother over onto the island and told him to come down. And that was how they stopped the riots. His mother on a loudspeaker being like, "Get the fuck out of that."
Irish
he said he'd come down for a sandwich or something. But hey, like there's weird stories like that over the shop. But it's great to be able to go to places like that and do live shows.
And it's haunted.
I mean, listen, yes, but no,
that stuff scares me, but it also really like interests me.
I mean, the tourist board would say that it's haunted, but really it's just
I'm gonna say I don't believe in ghosts, so then when I put the video that goes like and then for the rest of the story follow the Patreon.
And he didn't even believe in ghosts. Have you seen a ghost?
No, not my time. No. No.
Previously.
My last life.
I've never encountered a ghost. But I used to watch when I was younger. I used to watch, like Ghost Adventures, the 3 American guys. I think we were talking about this recently. They do something like they go to all these places in America which are apparently haunted, and they try to they go with all these voice boxes and stuff. I remember being obsessed with that when I was a kid, because I was like, I think it's like, you don't know that side of whatever, but I don't really believe in ghosts, but also I think it would be good crack to just,
I feel like you're about to pull a Ouija board off.
Heard this earlier.
I'm a big man. I'm always like, I don't believe in ghosts. No, I haven't a hint of it in me until it's like dark and I'm alone in the countryside, and all of a sudden they could be out there.
Are you off in the city or whereabouts?
I'm kind of, I would be like more country.
Like walking those country roads at night when there's no lights and it's just like sounds. You're like, that's a horse or a devil. I used to holiday when I was younger. My auntie lives in Wexford, and my uncle, the Loftus Hall, the place where like the devil turned into the hooves underneath the table playing poker. That story, that's down in Wexford, and my uncle brought us down there walking when we was like 7 or 8, and then it's like pitch black. And then he turns around and goes, "Oh, what's that?" And we both turn around and look. And then he legs it up the road. So by the time I look back, he's gone like 50 yards, and he just hides like around a ditch, just to laugh at just petrifying children.
That's the beauty of Irish history. It's a very loose term for what we've done. We've done like live episodes about ghosts. I think the Headless Horseman might be Irish origin. Obviously, like the
Banshee and
that sort of stuff. What were the?
I think it's a case of, how like people say Americans are always trying to claim that they're Irish.
Yeah,
I think that we send people abroad. 15 years, like generations later, we're like, no, his father.
We like invented Dracula. We're just I don't know. That's probably the worst thing Ireland's ever done to any other country, was the brave people of Romania, which ruined their lives really by inventing Dracula.
Right.
Every Romanian person has to spend the rest of their life now just people walking up to them going like, I want to suck. That was us. Like, we did that to them for no reason. Right. But this is great. I mean, we kind of cover any aspect of anywhere an Irish person was, sort of tangentially. We'll talk about that.
But then, like, we did like the Belfast bank robbery.
Oh yeah, right. The Great Northern Bank Robbery.
What's
that?
What's that?
Oh, boys, that's one of the most interesting parts of your shared history. That's where.
God damn it, Tommy! He let us down.
Well, it wasn't even that long ago. It was when was it Danske Bank? It's a bank that doesn't exist anymore. But someone robbed so much money from it that it was easier for the bank to like discontinue those notes rather than try and claim it back.
Was that because like Northern Ireland's such a small place?
Such a small place, and because you have like you make a lot of different variations of notes. Each bank has its own note.
Yeah, because you've got toy money, right?
You've got
it's Monopoly, itchy and scratchy money.
You can use both. You can use the fake money,
and then you've got made up money, and then you get annoyed when you go to Bristol on holidays and they won't take your money in the shop. Like, what do you mean? It's got a fucking picture of a distillery on it, man. It's Ireland. I'm not giving you this can of Monster, but because you've got such. The money changes so frequently. I think they just changed it to make new. I think it was Danske Bank, but make new Danske Bank notes. And then they got. It was like the biggest robbery in the history of robberies. And they took so much money that they were just like, all right, scrap it. Those notes won't be accepted in banks anymore, and we'll just print more money.
Was it the polymer ones? Was it the polymer fibers.
They were, they just invented them
in the early 2000s.
Yeah. There was this is it was that like sort of plasticky feel.
Yeah.
But you had an option. Like there was a time where you could drop the money back in and get it like returned. But obviously, it's going to be dodgy enough if you walk up with like 10 million
fibers
of the exact same.
Because they were like, anyone who has the legit money, bring it in the next couple of days. But if you're walking in with duffel bags, at least someone told you.
The girl behind the counter is just
But then they dropped
a line of grandmothers up the street.
They dropped like a duffel bag of it into a PSNI retirement bar or something like that. It was like a bar where it was just all police hung out, and they dropped off like 10 million of this unusable money in the jacks or something. But that was only like 20 years ago. But
I would say our general.
It must have been Northern Bank.
It might have been because one of
Yeah.
them changed it.
Great Northern Bank robbery.
The Great
That makes
Northern
sense.
Bank. That makes sense.
They're gone now,
It's like a
yeah.
mission on Red Dead Redemption or something.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, between the three of us, I would say you have a more general knowledge. Like, if we're in the pub and just
Pointless
talking about
knowledge,
something,
like-
Shay'll just be like, yeah, I actually have a fact for that, and he just starts riffing off stuff, and me and him look at each other like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
But I would say our general history knowledge, admittedly, is quite poor.
Yeah.
I studied it at school, not Irish history, but just history
Just
in general,
history,
and really
yeah.
liked it.
But there's too much of it. If
Yeah.
you're studying history in general, there's a lot of things to cover. you
Yeah.
know. But
And the thing down south as well, when you do like the leaving cert, you get like 4 topics. So one of them is going to be World War II, one of them's like Irish history. Just like one of the 4 is actually like the Southern history. So there's so much that even we don't know.
Yeah.
So like doing the podcast, you've learned a whole lot, but then you realise that there's just so much more.
Yeah.
You're, like, getting less confident the more I learn.
Yeah.
But I think part of the main reason we wanted to do, Irish history as a thing was at the time, I think ironically, when we started off, people were like, it was almost a joke to have a podcast. And that was, 5-6 years ago? And people were like, everyone has a podcast now. But now they're way more successful than they were 6 years ago in general. Like, I don't think anyone really had a podcast in Ireland back then. But that's definitely not true. But I mean, compared to how big they are now.
Yeah.
But there was so much stuff. You could look at any kind of niche aspect of American culture, or some, the governor from Arkansas did something weird, and there'd be a show about it or a YouTube video about it or something. And here there's like huge, crazy, mad things that have happened. And if you Google it, you'll get like, there's nothing. There's not.
Yeah.
Like, you can't find a photo of it. You can't find anyone talking about it. So there's just so many. It's an easy job in some ways because you can just go back. Like maybe the last one we did up here was about Roger Casement. And I know everyone's talking about Casement Park these days,
Yeah.
but like named after Roger Casement, who was like one of the most interesting men on the island. He went over and like helped topple the Belgian government who was running like all of the negative things you think about, like with African colonies and stuff. Well, a lot of that came from King Leopold, and Casement helped topple him. And went over and did like the same thing, helped disrupt the rubber trade and abuses in like South America, and then threw it all away and like joined the 1916 revolutionaries and like brought guns back for that, and did it all while being like a semi-openly gay man in like the early 1910s. And he's like, there's just a unbelievably interesting man that a lot of people don't know about. And like again, in many ways it's easy because no one's really covered. And like loads of people have talked about this, and there's loads of books written about all this sort of stuff. But we can kind of quite easily pick up stuff and
Does that
chat
also
about it.
sort of create a difficulty then for you whenever you're researching stuff, actually finding things, because it's not just out there, you just can't search it really, you have to do the deep dive into books and stuff like that?
Yeah, but you can always find resources, but they're just not very they're not very accessible, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm never spending money on something.
Yeah.
I'm not spending 20 quid on a book. I'll get a VPN and I still have like access to a Texas library card.
Yeah.
So I can just get I can get a load of books for free on that on my phone.
If it's not in the Texas library, it doesn't need that. Yeah. But it's just like what you're on about, like how you talk about stuff down the pub. We kind of distill stories and talk about them in a way that we can kind of understand them. And there's nothing really like that for a lot of stories.
Yeah.
A lot of Irish stories.
Why Texas? What?
I wanted to go over I got a visa after college. I wanted to do like comedy, and I'm a cameraman.
Right. Okay.
So I went over there. So that's why but I wasn't then I came back and then went back again.
Right.
And that's so in the in between we'd started the podcast
Whereabouts in Texas?
in Austin. So I was there for like on and off for about 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got back there just after the pandemic.
Right.
How did they take to like the Irish comedy?
They
like-
couldn't understand a
Yeah.
word I was saying. They were just smiling out of politeness.
Yeah.
But no, I loved it over there. Mrs. is still from there. I was
Yeah.
going to say still from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can head over. I'm heading over next week, hopefully,
Happy days.
for the South by Southwest Festival.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, is it with the comedy, like how was that something that you guys like did straight after like obviously like school or college or anything, or was it just something you? Because that always interests me. I think it's one of them questions that people always ask comedians, like, how did you get into comedy? But I think it's more coming from a case of like, what made you? Because us three, so many people, we've had comedians on, like a good few comedians on. And they always, I think it was Andrew Ryan asked us the other week. They were like, "Would you three lads not get into comedy?" And we were like, "No."
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything worse than getting up on a stage in front of everybody. But like, what made you?
It's not that. Think about the wasted nights, and like you
Yeah,
could have been
yeah.
seeing your friends, or like going
Yeah.
on a date, seeing your missus, staying at home watching Sopranos, cooking a meal,
Yeah.
and anything like that. You're like, no, I'm gonna like travel for an hour to go down to
Yeah.
see two people. Be like, I'd actually rather if the gig didn't go ahead. You're
Yeah.
like, better because I don't want to do it either.
Yeah, it's a proper passion. Like, I think you need to
to
have
be
for it. Like,
demented. It was very unreasonable of Andrew Ryan to tell you guys to get into comedy. I would say
Yeah.
advise as many people to stay out of it as
yeah.
possible.
But I think he was more saying like it'd be good to try and get more like people on like the scene. I think that's kind of what his angle was. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong.
You're wrong, Andrew. Right?
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
less people on the scene.
Yeah.
Maybe he was trying to just be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah. Maybe he thought we were hilarious. You never know.
Yes.
Yeah.
but it is such a like graft. Like, you know, even I think
Yeah.
one of the things we've had Andrew on the podcast a couple of times now, and he was saying you don't think people realise like the likes of Michael McIntyre and the big comedians, like how long they were doing comedy before they actually made their big break. Like, he was talking about Mickey Flanagan doing the out joke. You know, he's like, you go out.
yeah.
He was like I seen that 6 years before that was like on TV. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
it's such a struggle to make it really. Like,
It's insane. Was the old joke of like, yeah, you'll slog away for like 15 years and then something will switch and suddenly you're on TV or something and be like, Jesus, he came out of nowhere. It's an
Yeah.
overnight success. But it's
Yeah.
like just
You'd be
like
never-
even Joanne McNally's probably one of the biggest touring acts in Ireland at the minute. And sure, we would have been doing, you know, shitty open mics with her 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
Seriously? What's that like then, like seeing those people like go from like doing open mics for yourselves and then now they're like turning out of the whole Ireland and the UK and stuff?
It's just the classic Irish response of like a mix of like good for them and also, you know, fuck them.
That could have been me.
Could have been me. If only I was a 40-year-old woman from Dublin. I had it all there. But yeah, no, it's great to see, and it is amazing, and especially like it's a different game up here. Like the comics here are doing crazy things.
Yeah.
It's
They're
really
turning around
impressive.
doing arenas and stuff. It's
Yeah.
mad. Yeah, we're still
Yeah.
happy in Dublin if you can sell like 50 seats.
Yeah.
Grand, well,
Yeah.
Do you guys notice a big difference between up here and in Dublin and stuff?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no, they're like just the size of the shows. I think like the biggest room in Dublin outside of like the 300 seater club is like probably 65, 70 seats. Something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
We were laughing on the way down here that like Lavery's has a sign outside it that says comedy club.
Yeah.
And you just wouldn't see that in Dublin.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a bar that helped. It was like just put
Yeah.
a sign out saying
Yeah.
that the event is on.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's because it's so big here that bars kind of see it as a financial thing, so they row in behind it.
Yeah.
Whereas in Dublin, it'd mostly be like, you're on stage somewhere, but there's music coming from like below you and above you and both
Right.
sides. Like it's just trying to cram as much stuff in as
Yeah.
possible into small spaces down there.
Yeah.
It's probably something we take for granted here. Like, it seems like so normal. Like,
I
you
know.
could
Yeah.
probably find a comedy night every night
Most
of the week
nights,
here.
yeah.
I think
It's-
Empire's on tonight.
yeah.
Empire's on
Right.
a Tuesday. And again,
Yeah.
like that's a beautiful theatre in the middle of the city, like walking this
Yeah.
city centre.
How much is it? Like £8 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it comes with a pint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
on.
That's-
Is that not like a thing where you get that many people in one? It's probably like what 200 people maybe or so.
Well, the Olympia would be the equivalent of that building, and that would only be
Yeah.
for like. There's no way you'd have a sort of. I know the standard in the Empire is like really, really good, but it's still
Yeah.
like.
They'd also
You
let
wouldn't
lads
have
like us
that.
on sometimes. So it's
Yeah,
like-
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no way there would be a comedy night in the Olympia in Dublin where someone like me could just go up on a Tuesday
Mhm.
and there's a fiver in,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
packed every night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a different scene up here.
And you were
Yeah.
saying, like, before we started recording, how, like, competitive it is at the weekends to get slots as well compared to, like, up here.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, just that there's probably like 3 professional clubs in Dublin.
Mm.
And I've definitely pissed off someone by saying that. But maybe like 3 to 5. And that's just not. And again, they're all in smaller rooms. Like, you know, you put something on in the Empire, you're covering, 200 people. Whereas all the rooms in Dublin are like 50 to 70 at a push.
Mhm.
So there's not that many people. And it's just, it's hard to kind of fit everyone in. And there's way more comics in Dublin, I think, trying to make a living out of it.
Yeah.
And then, as you were saying, like, there's people coming in and out, international acts, and then like anyone who's doing tours around will kind of drop in and do spots.
Was it
Or,
Shane Gillis was in Dublin recently, like a month or so ago?
He was, last summer, was he?
He might have been back recently as well, was he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, was it Aaron McCann that supported him? I'm pretty sure it was Shane Gillis.
Yeah, I think McCann supported him and Richie Berry.
Because I saw him last year at some point, and he was like, well, he's phenomenal anyway. I hadn't seen he did like his hour that he just released on Netflix, or maybe he was just about to release it. I still haven't seen it yet on Netflix, so I just saw it that one time live.
Yeah.
And I guess I'd only seen like maybe it was a year or two before, like his last special before.
Yeah.
But it just felt so quick that it's like, it's another hour and it's better than almost everyone's.
Yeah.
It's like everyone else was still working for like 10 years on their first one.
Yeah.
And that won't be as good.
Yeah. I have to ask, because we've asked every like comedian and stuff who's been on here, has there ever been a time where you've been on stage and you've absolutely like kicked the bed, like it's been a jokes have landed terribly, it's been a really awkward? Have you ever had anybody heckle you? Because I love to hear these stories.
How long have you got?
Is it bad? Like
Nah.
some people are like, oh, it's not too bad, like you have your nights, but then
It's never
I can't
been
imagine it, hey?
like I feel like it's as you get better and you get bigger opportunities, because you can't really bomb, like, you know, it feels bad, but like if you're just bombing in front of, 10 people at an open mic on a Tuesday, doesn't really matter. But as you get further on, you get bigger opportunities, then you can really fuck yourself. But I'd say 3 days ago I was doing a gig in a bar. I won't say the name of the bar, but it's a Republican bar down south, and mostly English, British tourists just over on holiday, having a nice time of the weekend. And you're on stage and all this coming down from upstairs, you can hear every single word of it, and it's just the most IRA songs you'll ever hear. And for the most part, the tourists don't even pick up on it, because they're a bit like, they're not going to know what Comedy Black and Tans is about. But luckily the boys played some classics that you couldn't mistake as anything else other than that. So every once in a while they're like completely tuning out and being like, who did they say they should take out and shoot? And it's just like, trying to keep that going. So that's not so much a heckle, but that's fresh in my memory. That was about 4 days ago.
No, it's just all the open mics, like as you're starting out and going, like especially in Texas. I think I used to go to, I did one gig in Ireland and then moved over there, so I still didn't have the confidence to do it, so I was like constantly shaking. But right around the corner from the house was an underground conspiracy theory bookshop.
What?
That did.
That's such a Texas thing.
It was BYOB, and you were allowed to smoke down there as well. And I was like, I will just go there any night it's on.
That's like a mecca for comics. Like, it's smokehouse conspiracy shit.
It was fantastic. And it was weird because I never saw any of the other comics that would go to the good open mics ever go to that one. It was always like lads who never went to any other gigs. They would just go down there. They probably just, it was very odd. And the woman who used to run it used to always claim that Ron White had bought a joke off her.
Right.
Yeah, and I was like, that's definitely, maybe it's true.
Yeah.
I've seen her says it's probably not.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy.
But I think my last gig before the pandemic was in like an Irish themed. It's called the Tilted Kilt, but it's like an Irish Hooters in Killeen, Texas. So it's like an hour and a half. It's like real close to Waco, I think. It was like 12 people. And I was like, you know what? It's the first gig of the week coming up to Paddy's Day. It's going to be the worst one, but the rest of them are going to be great. I didn't gig again for like a year and a bit. Yeah. So I just had like the taste of that in my mouth for like a year.
Days.
Yeah. Oh no, for like until I got back on stage, and then when getting back on stage was like, oh, it's going to be like open mics, like just coming out of pandemic. Like it probably took me like another like a year and a few months to get like a good gig again. Where it's like finally like I've got that off the back.
Any like is there any like sort of weird or wonderful conspiracy theories that you guys have like came across? Because I must admit our audience loves a good conspiracy. Aaron told one recently about the Titanic and got absolutely trailed through the comment section like,
what was the conspiracy? It turns out the rest of the world actually thinks that was a tragedy.
It was actually
quite a quarter of the city after.
Turns out it wasn't okay when it left.
No, we keep blaming Cork or Liverpool, but that was actually us. What was the conspiracy theory with the Titanic?
What was it, Aaron? That
it didn't sink.
So basically, at the time the Titanic was
Still
built,
up there.
was
Floating away.
at the time the Titanic was built, they also built the Olympia.
Yeah.
And
the Olympic was
the Olympic, yeah, yeah. So
It was like a replacement, wasn't it?
yeah,
They essentially set the Olympic out to sail, correct me if I'm wrong, but named it the Titanic, and they sunk the Olympic on purpose so that they could.
so they swapped they did a little switcheroo. So the Olympic
Yeah.
was obviously like on its way out. So they were obviously building the Titanic, and like its maiden voyage was coming. But also J.P. Morgan, the guy who owned it, had a lot of his rivals who were coming to the maiden voyage of the Titanic. So the conspiracy theory is that they fixed the Olympia, the Olympic just like enough, switched it so they were like, this is the Titanic, when it was actually the Olympia, and then the Olympic, and then they set it sail, kicked it in an iceberg, wrecked that ship, got the insurance money, and also it was a
Believe
bazooka.
that's an iceberg, Jesus.
Kicked it into an iceberg.
Yeah.
Also got the insurance money, and then also killed off J.P. Morgan's rivals.
Sure, along with
Yeah.
like half of upper society at the
Yeah.
time. That's
yeah.
Jack
Yeah.
and Rose.
And Rose.
Well, not Rose.
Yeah.
Oh, and some people are saying this isn't true.
Yeah.
Where's the
there's-
conspiracy?
yeah, so
something
yeah,
to do with
if
like J.P. Morgan was looking to get something passed or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was wanting to start the Federal Reserve in America,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
and the basically every other banker in America was fully against it.
Yeah.
All of them died in the Titanic.
Ooh.
That is pretty good.
But
Yeah.
if you go on our TikTok, it's like one of the most viewed TikToks we've put out recently. I think got like over 1 million views. People
Yeah.
were just like, "This is
Is that where they had
yeah,
to
so
do-
now every time Aaron comes on to do any conspiracy theories, he has a tinfoil hat and
Oh yeah.
beams in.
Is
You
that
Every comment's either "This is fucking stupid,"
Yeah.
or "Well, obviously."
Yeah.
There's no
Of
in
it.
between.
How did you guys not know this? Of course, I was
Of
there
course,
at the time.
yeah. When those 4 billionaires tried to go down and see us, that were there to take care of them.
Yeah, that's the conspiracy theory.
Someone logged into that remote control with the Xbox control. The fun or
The Joe Dolan. Do you all know who Joe Dolan is?
No of them.
Yeah.
he's
Sounds
our
familiar.
Titanic.
Right?
Yeah, he's like, what's he, like a giant country western star, or like show tunes and
cross
whatever.
genre
Yeah.
star, but
Like
yeah.
massive, but he would have been probably the biggest like artist in Ireland, like in the South at the time. And he took out an ad in his local paper in Westmeath, giving a £500 reward to anyone who had information for someone who was spreading the rumor that he was gay.
Right?
Which is definitely how like everyone found out about it.
Yeah.
Is
Is
he?
this real? Like,
Oh
they
yeah,
actually
yeah.
put out a
News-
ad in the
he
newspaper?
was like dogged the whole way through his career about these rumors that he was gay, but
He has a song called like Westmeath Bachelor.
yeah,
He never took a wife.
yeah.
Or ever had like a girlfriend, I don't think. He used to like have loads of lovely lads staying with him.
Yeah.
It's just,
He would tour around with
but you couldn't break the illusion for the women of Ireland, the women's- of like the 70s.
Yeah.
But like people wouldn't let like if people wouldn't be like go to shows and stuff. Like it was very homophobic Ireland.
Yeah.
But he was almost certainly gay.
Yeah.
Like I know my dad had told stories about that. Of, like lads from because he was huge and people would just go with him. They'd be like, he wouldn't. He was gay. No, he loved the company of young men. 'Cause the other lads, they wouldn't be able to drink as much as him. And he'd like younger men to go drinking with him.
Yeah.
And he put them up in hotels. He was very generous with the drinks and stuff. He'd be cheap enough when it came to beds. You'd only pay for one bed. But he'd be great man for the pot.
Yeah.
And like, but they genuinely be like, he knew lads who went touring around with him and they never thought anything of it. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's good. But the one I always go to is W.B. Yeats. One of our other great poets or artists or whatever. Sligo Tourism has a big thing set up in Sligo for his grave, and there's a tombstone there, and he's got the inscription is like I don't know, cast an eye over life over dead horsemen pass on by or something. It's a big nice tourism spot over there. He's not buried there at all. He never made it back here, and they don't want to admit that. But he died in France before World War II. And he ended up in a potter's grave. And then after World War II, when they were bringing his bones back here, they didn't know which bones were his. So they threw a bundle of bones in a bag and sent them back
Standing
here.
old bones,
And
Right.
they were like, his friends were looking at them being like, it was something
Those aren't his bones.
Those aren't his bones, you know. Like it was, I don't. It was there was some giveaway.
I would know
was
that
like,
spine.
Yeah, he didn't have a spine. That was, but I think
Look at these cheekbones. He had no features.
the kicker is that the woman that he'd spent his whole life perving after, he tried to marry this woman, and that didn't work out. And then years later, he tried to marry her daughter, which is, you know, a classy move. That didn't work out. And her son was in charge of bringing his bones back. He was in a government position then years later. So maybe the bones came back. He saw them and he's like, fuck him. Fuck the old man.
Yeah.
Throw them out in a bin in Sligo. Yeah. There was some giveaway, like he had some disease, bone disease that wasn't there.
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
Something, maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, that's one I believe. There's a big tourist attraction to him out there. He's not there at all. He's in France somewhere.
It's the Titanic even from Belfast.
Yeah.
It's all just a scam.
Or fungi, the dolphin
Oh, the
down in
dolphin.
Tralee.
He's
Or
been
no,
living for
Dingo.
like 100 years.
Yeah, he's the
Yeah.
oldest.
Well, maybe
man.
100, like,
He's
but-
He's
dead
never
now.
existed. That's a robot.
Yeah.
That's like.
I
have,
will-
have you ever met him?
I've seen it. I was down there.
I'll show you a video of a
speaking there,
robot
like-
dolphin right now. It'll
Yeah.
change your mind.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the entire economy of the town was run off of. I always think it's like the opposite of Jaws. Like Jaws is a story about the mayor of a small town desperately trying to convince people there isn't something in the water to keep tourism alive. And
Yeah.
Tralee or Dingle is just the opposite. Desperately, no, he's out there still. Come on, get in the boat. We'll go find fungi. Oh, I saw a fin. It's
Just
like,
a
he's
guy with a fucking fin on his back.
100%. I was a robot. It's genuinely the whole economy of that town was running off that dolphin. There was a lot of vested
That's
interest
cool.
for it to be alive.
Yeah.
It's like the fucking Game of Thrones thing. like
Game of Thrones and
Yeah.
Titanic is the
like
two
the Dark
things
Age.
we
It's
really
like,
know.
That
dark,
like,
yeah.
imagine if Game of Thrones had been good. This would be
Yeah.
a different city.
It'd be like Dubai.
Yeah.
Well, they've got like a Game of Thrones exhibition centre and all now.
It's
yeah.
And it seems to be doing really well. But like the amount of people, like
have you seen where it is?
no,
It's like, you know, beside
It's
the
in
outlet.
Ballymena, or not Ballymena, Bally. Oh,
It's just outside Newry, beside the outlet
Outlet,
shopping
yeah.
centre. There's literally
Banbridge.
in a car park in Banbridge,
Right.
like just like beside a shopping
but
centre.
you can go.
like.
But like the tourism around Game of Thrones, like, is unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
we went to, so we like this maybe 2 years ago. We started doing like vlogs, which we quickly stopped doing. But we started doing vlogs, and one of the vlogs I was like, right lads, I'm going to take you to some Game of Thrones locations.
Yeah.
And we went to the Dark Hedges, and you liked it. You weren't impressed at all. You were like, it's just a bunch
I've
of
been
bushes.
before. It's literally a road with trees on it,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah,
like,
I've seen
people
it,
are like
yeah.
taking photos,
But
and they're
like,
like, oh my god,
trees
you're
are all
like,
You're
falling
just
down.
you're just standing there, and the next minute, shh, you look around. There's a bus door open, and
Yeah.
like 40,000 Americans like get off, and they're
Yeah.
like, God, look at these trees. It's like,
They really
what?
are dark.
Yeah, God, it's a bit light out here.
One of
Come
them-
back later on.
One of them fell over in a storm there
Yeah,
recently, and
yeah,
it was
I've
like a
seen
big.
that.
It was like, Northern Ireland will never recover from this tragedy.
But like, it's so funny because the Dark Hedges, like that scene was maybe about 5 seconds
Yeah.
long.
I
I have
and
no
then-
idea what scene it is. So
Yeah,
I have
so
no,
there-
I
there's
know it
literally
more as a tourist attraction. than-
Imagine a random country road down where you're from,
Yeah.
and literally a scene is shot in a well-known TV show, and it's maybe about 3 seconds of a high up like drone shot, and
because I know the photo people take,
Yeah.
but I don't know what
Yeah.
scene that is.
oh,
in the
it's,
show
it,
or
you
what,
blink
like-
and you'll miss
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Yeah,
If that's
it's literally,
the-
if you're not from here, like I remember watching and be like, oh, that's the Dark Hedges, that's class, and then you actually really think about it. Like we went to Cushendun Caves is one I took you to down to
Oh,
that,
yeah.
and it's the place where there's this scene where there's this like witch lady, and she gives birth
yeah.
to basically the devil, the
Yeah.
shadow baby, and it goes and kicks off
started
and goes to
reenacting
like.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went into the caves where this was all shot,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're literally just going into a cave, and
cave, like, me
yeah.
and Shay were like,
There was a
"Is he
throne
taking
in
us
it.
down here?"
Wasn't there a
Yeah.
throne on it?
There's someone has put a sofa inside the cave
sofa.
with a bunch of little
That's
foam
awesome.
swords out the back of it.
Nice.
But the thing is, they've put it behind. You remember like the stuff on the ground? There was like weird gloopy stuff on the ground, which we were like, that's definitely gonna like come around to bite us in the ass in like 70 years time. Like we're gonna have some sort of disease off this stuff.
Oh.
like.
Oh yeah.
But like even like Ballantoy Harbour is really nice, like from the Game of Thrones, like
But there are places
taking-
that were nice anyway, and now it's just like
Yeah.
fucking rinsing the fuck out of
but,
it.
like, at the
They've
same
scattered
time,
them Game of Thrones monuments around Belfast too,
Oh,
in
aye,
the
the
most
stained-
random places,
the
just to
stained
get you to
glass
go to that
things.
place
Yeah.
to visit this area that's never been visited before by anyone else. Like.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of the Shankles.
Yeah, it's just in
But, like,
Jamie
random places,
Lannister lost his hand.
Yeah, but it's absolutely mad. Like the amount of like if you go up around like that coast direction, even around like Dunluce Castle, there's a shot of one of the castles in Game of Thrones, and it's loosely based off Dunluce Castle. But they just hoof like a massive like them big not double decker, but like single decker buses.
Yeah.
They'll just stop in the middle of what is a coastal road, and about 70 people will get out and just disperse. It's madness, like, and it's still bringing in.
Yeah,
Even it's still bringing in.
What's the name of Superman's town?
Smallville.
Smallville.
Yeah, so I was there's some place in like Tennessee I was driving through, and they just have a Smallville. I don't know if it's like the exact place, whatever, but like they have a Superman museum.
Yeah.
And it definitely keeps that little town alive.
Yeah, like
because there's nothing else. There's like 2 bars or whatever, and then this giant like 100-foot tall Superman.
Yeah. There's a couple of, I know a friend of mine, he recently done like a bit of a road trip around America, and they were going through like a couple of like neighboring towns where like Area 51 is, and he said there's a couple of neighboring towns that literally their sole economy is driven off like, you know, like inflatable like aliens and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
close to like Area 51.
Like Roswell is mad.
Yeah,
It's just
Roswell
like,
was where he went through.
It's good, and actually, you know what? In terms of conspiracy theories, I believe it a little bit. I like the idea of aliens. It's
Yeah.
fun, and then I went and did like the museum.
Yeah.
I came out, I was like, Jesus Christ, they actually are real.
Yeah. But like I watched an Area 51 documentary recently, and I just find the whole thing like this wasteland in the middle of the desert, and like you're not allowed near it, like super secret and all this here. Like I just find that so interesting. I'm like,
It's right
I
beside
really
where they
wanna
dropped
know.
like the bomb, like Oppenheimer.
Yeah. You know, whenever
But straight after they did that, that's
Yeah.
where all the weird activity starts happening.
Yeah.
You're like, all right,
Yeah.
well, that makes sense.
Well, that's what a
to
lot
an
of
idiot like me.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people now. I was watching that documentary, and a lot of the guys who worked in Area 51 were like claiming for sort of health like deterioration because obviously they'd let the nuclear tests off so close, and that was obviously catching in the air.
They just wanted their benefits. They just wanted it off.
But like this guy, he was like in this documentary, and he was like, I've been fighting the government for years. My health has deteriorated. And he was like, at least 40, like he was like 30-40 stone, like he was huge. And he was like, my health has deteriorated because of Area 51. And my wife was lying like next to me, and she was just like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, I think there might be other reasons here, but like, yeah, it was madness. Like, but
I don't understand this because the two, like, it's an atomic testing ground, and then like obviously the US military are building stuff there.
Yeah.
And they put up fences in the middle of nowhere away from people, and you're like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
It's aliens.
But like, even whenever people
where they
were like
make
doing,
weapons.
whenever people were doing like, remember the whole thing where people were like storm Area 51? They were
Yeah,
doing like the
yeah.
Naruto run.
Yeah.
I remember sitting like watching the news. I was like, Godspeed! I want to know
Yeah.
what's in there.
Yeah,
Like, you know,
these brave soldiers.
Yeah.
There was,
Just running.
if you can Naruto run at it, then,
Yeah.
there was something funny. Oppenheimer came out whatever last summer, but I remember I think Richard Feynman's in the background of the film somewhere. I read his book years ago, and he was saying because top secret organization, they all move out to not El Paso, but wherever, sometime in the middle of nowhere. And they're all like the top scientists or whatever in the country. But they're all subscribed, or most of them are subscribed to this magazine called like, you know, Atom Weekly or Big Nerd Weekly or something.
Right.
And so this magazine all of a sudden had to change all of its subscriptions to this one address in the middle of nowhere in America.
Right.
So they copped on and was like, wait a minute. So they've got like a mailing address all over the country where they're sending out the next edition of Big Nerd Monthly. And all of a sudden all their addresses get changed to like this town in the middle of nowhere. Like,
Oh yeah,
what the fuck's happening there?
Yeah, the
And
town
that's-
where they were testing the.
yeah, that's where they went to build the bomb. I think he told another story about like they were all told not to travel by train.
Yeah.
So they're all supposed to go there secretly. So he was like, well, if no one else is traveling by train, I can travel by train because they're all going by other ways. So he shows up to the train station, and he's like, oh, I'm going out to such and such. He's like, is that where the big scientific experiments happening? He's like, how do you know about that? He's like, yeah, we've been shipping equipment out there all week. It's just it has to travel by train. There's no other way to get there.
It's like when the Irish invaded Canada back in like
That's a segue. We could have built the nuclear bomb.
But like right beforehand, they said like all the reports were like they kind of knew something was going to happen because right on the border in all the towns right beside it, there was just like hundreds of Irish lads wearing military uniforms.
Is this for real? What? Did this
Oh,
happen?
yeah.
When was
Yeah,
this?
it was like is it 1788?
It was after the American Civil War, and all the boys were.
I just said a number there. I
You
was
did,
just like,
yeah,
I was
you
like
went
really
for
was
it.
swinging. Yeah.
It was the 1880s, I think. But they had the guns, they had mild training, and they were
Ready to
loose
go. The
end.
passion.
The idea was to take over Canada and then swap it with the British for Ireland.
Yeah,
that was the
ransom it.
plan.
Right.
Ransom it
Yeah.
for Ireland's freedom. There was like, what's better to fight the English over there or over here where they wouldn't have as many like soldiers, and
And,
all like I guess all the lads had their military training through the American Civil War, so they were showing up on like you're gonna basically get like towns full of drunken Irish lads getting ready to invade, both wearing opposite sides of the Civil War's uniforms.
Yeah.
But they were just fighting each other, and now
Yeah.
they're like, keep the jerseys on, lads.
Yeah.
We're going up north.
But we got surprisingly far because Canada, they travelled over from like Boston, but Canada is like fairly sparsely populated, so the boys were
Yeah.
just running up there. They were in there for a couple of days before anyone stopped them. So technically, pretty successful land invasion.
Big undertaking though.
Big, yeah,
They shot at like a house and then ran away again. It was like literally something like
yeah.
that.
Brave boys in green.
This is the history you don't hear about.
Yeah, I think that was that one. That was the first use of the initialization IRA. It was in that battle, all the way back then. But
Right.
they, the Canadians don't know about that. We don't really teach people about that. That's just one. That was a
Yeah.
freebie. We don't really tell anyone about that one.
You wouldn't either. You
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Nah, it's pretty embarrassing.
What, like, with regards to, like, obviously a lot of, like, the people listening, like on this will be, like, from, obviously, Belfast and stuff. Is there anything, like, really interesting stuff that you can share with some of our listeners in terms of, like, Belfast history that maybe a lot of us don't know?
Casement lived here. You saw his house.
Oh yeah, I was up on Saturday night and I was gigging in the Sunflower,
Right.
and my buddy was in the Maverick around the corner. Hadn't seen him in months, so I went over there and met him. And I met some of his is it Aslans or something, the gay rugby team. All the lads were out, so I got chatting to this lad I assumed was on the team because he's a big giant fella, and he was like, "Oh, I know where Casement's house is." So I went off with him, and I met the lads. Like, I went down to Bittles with a pint for him afterwards, and I met the lads back at the gaff like 3 hours later. And I was like, "Your mate's dead sound." He's like, "We've never met him before in our life." He just went on a fucking random like 2.5 hour excursion at like
Right.
fucking, midnight with just some lad to just show me where Casement used to live. But sure, I was pissed, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have a photo of it outside of it, so if I zoom in, maybe. But yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. And seemingly there's the lad who invented the RGB color scheme. He's from Belfast for like color and videos.
Oh,
There we go.
Yeah,
the
I didn't either.
uh,
Mad. Found it out like locked at 2 a.m. on Saturday night.
the guy Earthworm Jim, the guy who wrote that or invented that, is from Lisbon.
Right.
Yeah. I thought that was going to be a big bombshell, but no.
What did you say there?
Earthworm Jim is like a cartoon from the 90s. It's a video game. He's a successful.
See, I'm 99.
Yeah, see, I barely remember either, but it was. He's from Lisbon. I found that out recently. The DeLorean.
Yeah. Know about it,
here. Listen, what haven't you done? It's a great city. The
Titanic.
Titanic, maybe.
Yeah.
The penalty kicks from Armagh.
Yes, right.
The penalty kick is from
Was
Armagh.
invented in
Yeah.
Armagh, yeah.
Armagh was so dirty that they invented something more correct.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Milford.
Milford just like in Armagh, yeah.
What do you mean? Just invented the penalty
That's
kick?
where
Where
the
there's,
penalty
like,
kick was
Some young
invented.
boys
right?
were playing a game of football and it went on like all evening or something, and they needed to figure out a way to settle it. Finish the game.
Yeah.
Oh, like the penalty kick out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they came up with, at the end everyone took a penalty each.
Sure.
They probably didn't know the name of it back then, like, but
Yeah. I thought you meant someone just like invented the penalty kick in Armagh, so someone got tripped outside the box and was like, "Fuck that, I'm doing that again." That was gonna be a goal.
no.
Yeah. Oh my word.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't remember.
The more you know.
Most of the American presidents trace their lineage back to this part of Ireland. Like a
Yeah.
lot of people say American presidents of Irish heritage. Most of it is like this part of the country.
Yeah.
So in a way, you can basically run America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched on it there earlier on, the statue of the guy outside the town,
Yeah.
the city hall. Who, like, for anybody listening, like, who's he? Why is he so?
He's Edward Carson. He was the Dublin man who loved the union. He's a lawyer and like very pro-unionist, and then tried to keep Ireland in the union. I kind of gave up on that dream and then came out to Belfast and fought hardly. So it's just kind of funny that he's like one of the most prominent unionist figures. He's from the dreaded Dublin.
Yeah.
And there's a statue outside of it. He was alive when the statue was put there, and I think he was not happy about it.
Yeah.
But he's an interesting figure.
Yeah.
My statue's not in the right place.
Yeah. But,
Funny enough, we were talking about Casement Park in the last, as this goes
Yeah,
out,
a
it'll be
couple
like 2-3
episodes ago.
podcasts ago. But we were talking about the whole Casement Park,
yeah.
sort of Wouldn't necessarily like a debate.
Debacle.
if that
Sure,
makes sense.
yeah. I lived in Belfast in 2014. And I'm pretty sure it was like under construction then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think 2011 was like when the NI executive first pledged the money
Yeah,
to build it, and don't you know what's happened since then?
That's
Quite a
3
bit.
years, like it's nearly, well, it'll be 3 years till it needs to be built. Like,
Yeah.
will it be built?
That's because you're not going to be part of the Euros if not, right?
Yeah.
Or like,
Nothing else.
how big is Windsor? Is it close to 20,000?
Yeah,
It's
we
14,
looked
isn't
at
it?
14.
Yeah.
18.
It has to
18,
be
yeah.
30,000, I think, the capacity to be in the Euros.
To be in the Euro.
Yeah.
You're fucked. I can't see
Pretty
it
much,
changing though. That's
Yeah.
like because even down south, like the like sports podcasts for the last few weeks have been dominated by it,
Yeah.
and they're like, "What's gonna just and they're at an impasse. Nothing's gonna change unless like the GA should like stump up a bunch of money, and they're just definitely not gonna do that.
What is the general consensus down south? They just not one part of it, or
Well, it's even weird because if say Kev doesn't like soccer or the GA, so all of this is he found out about this happening about 2 days ago, and I was like, I'm fucking outraged because
Yeah. So the park named after the famous revolutionary. No one gives a shit. But it is mad because I remember it being talked about back like 10 years ago. I moved here in 2014, which I don't know if you boys remember. That was a bad time to be living in Belfast. The recession was not kind to this place.
Yeah.
that's
It was
right.
great. I think Dublin was just starting to get back together, and I moved up here, and I was like, oh yeah, forget about going out, forget about doing stuff. But,
Yeah.
it's a lot nicer. I've been coming up a good bit. We've been coming up and doing gigs a good bit recently in the
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
couple of years. It's a very nice city now.
Yeah.
We've got restaurants and pubs
Yeah.
and
And
stuff.
we,
that are all-
we rebuilt the Primark building.
yeah, that
Very
one.
I remember the day that all went up
Yeah,
in
yeah.
flames and people were crying and
oh,
Yeah.
this is news to me.
yeah. So the Primark building in the city centre,
Mm.
it's like a very like historical building. Primark was just happened to be inside it,
Yeah.
but I think they were in trying to revamp.
They were redoing it.
They were redoing
and
it, and
then
then
something caught on fire,
something-
and like
yeah.
the roof and like the whole
Did
building.
you ever figure out who done that?
Don't know.
I think it was a bit.
Is
Yeah.
it stop
You said
or
that
something?
as you.
Yeah.
Like,
But, like,
Wasn't in Belfast.
basically it was like
Caught on.
yeah, it was like massive news. Like I remember, like it was on
Yeah.
like BBC and all, and people were like like tragic, as if like we were under attack, but someone had like basically, I think it was like an electrical fire or something, but it set fire to the Primark building. But because it's such a, like a all in around them city
Yeah.
centre, like the architecture and stuff, a lot of that will be like protected, like for the, obviously like historical reasons and stuff. But like it went up in flames, and then for I would say a good couple of years there was big white. There's big yellow. Remember the big yellow like tin
the container?
shipping containers
Yeah,
up in
yeah.
front of it, and they had to like rebuild it, and then they did like a grand opening.
And it was still
Oh my word! The streets were paved with people. I remember there was that iconic interview of the woman, and she was like they'd been standing outside for hours waiting to get in the Primark, and the news reporter came up and was like, "Are you excited?" She was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go in and tear the place this honor." And like everybody was pure clipping up, and it went viral. Like, but yeah, like that happened. That was probably.
that's mad. Such
Yeah,
a like
amazing.
historical, like
Oh,
valuable
yeah.
building.
Yeah,
to
you
have
could
such
definitely do
shit
like an hour and a half.
inside.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
shit,
definitely
the
do like an
whole
hour and a half
Primark
podcast on that. Like,
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know why that reminded me of we were on about Belfast facts, but yeah, it's Ulster Hall. The first time "Stairway to Heaven" was played, Led Zeppelin song, was in Belfast.
Really?
In
There you
Ulster
go.
Hall. Yeah, I think there's a plaque to it there.
right?
I think, but that happened.
and
But,
the first time they were ever told to shut up was
Yeah.
also in the
Because-
Ulster Hall.
because if you think of, like now everyone loves "Stairway to Heaven," but like imagine if like Led Zeppelin, big heavy rock and roll band, and then they just started playing like,
Yeah.
shut the fuck up,
Yeah.
play Black Dog or whatever one of the
Yeah.
songs is. And is it House of the Holy, one of their albums? The album cover, it's kind of a red, yellowy hue thingy with like little weird imps. That's the Giant's Causeway.
Right.
Yeah, so they took a photo for the album cover out in the Giant's Causeway with like 2 kids.
Right.
Yeah, so there you go. And there's some third fact about Led Zeppelin that I've forgotten about. But it's probably interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the music scene in Northern Ireland is insane. Like
Yeah.
the punk music scene of the. I was watching Good Vibrations recently. Did you ever see that?
Who's that?
It's a movie by Terry Hooley, who opened a record shop on what was referred to as the most bombed out mile in Europe. So in the middle of Belfast, in the middle of the Troubles, he just opened both sides, all sides, non-sectarian record shop,
Right.
and helped a load of bands get their start.
Right.
It was really, really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But my favorite, did you ever listen to Stiff Little Fingers?
No.
Boys, put on some records. Stiff Little Fingers are really, really great punk group from Northern Ireland, and back in like 2015, remember there was like the attacks in Paris where
The ISIS ones.
the which?
ISIS ones, was it?
Yeah, the ISIS back when that was happening.
Yeah.
And
Remember all that?
Yeah, for every couple of years. I think it was 2015, and they went in and shot up a gig in Paris, and everyone else that was due to play cancelled because of the terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Apart from Stiff Little Fingers.
Right.
And they were like, fucking, if we didn't play a gig because someone shot up the place, we never would have played a gig at all.
Yeah.
Like, that's not news to us. We were there at 7 o'clock. But yeah, they're still going.
Yeah.
You've got a great music scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I'm friends with someone that who does like jazz music, to Damien, and I remember being like, surely, and he was like, the jazz scene in Belfast is just really good, and I was like, okay, and he started telling us stories about like jazz concerts and stuff that they had here. It's like, and you know the way if I say like jazz, you're expecting like smooth jazz that you're sitting, people are in the corner reading a newspaper and drinking whiskey. Like these gigs, like he was saying, were absolutely manic.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to repeat half the stories he told us in this podcast, like, but he was like he remembers like watching people on the stage and they just started doing like, it just got out of control, and I was like, is this jazz?
Devonish wouldn't have a look in.
It's the it's the devil's music. It gets people going. There was a jazz club down by the Spaniard.
Birch Jazz Bar, is it?
Birch Jazz Bar,
Yeah, I think it's like a restaurant. It's owned by them or something.
Yeah. All my references for Belfast are like 10 years old.
Yeah.
I remember going there a few times. It was good.
Yeah. And in terms of like, obviously you guys are doing like your live podcasts and stuff, because you've got a live podcast in Belfast at the end of it'll be quite soon whenever this podcast goes out.
21st of March.
Yes.
21st of March.
Yeah, we should have written that down in our hands.
Yeah. So like, what can people like expect if they're listening to this? Like, because I genuinely think like, even from the very like sort of brief like hour-long conversation we've had, like it's really interesting, because there's a lot of stuff that we could probably sit here all night and you could tell us stories that we have no clue about. So I'd say a lot of people are interested in maybe coming and hearing a bit of that, and it's so lighthearted as well. So like, what sort of stuff are you gonna chat about?
We could try and like play it off like, oh, it's a secret, but we genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
We haven't wrote the episode yet. I haven't even started it. So it's we're gonna go on tour this year. So like the Belfast will be the first gig of it, and then we're gonna do like most of the big towns or cities around Ireland. Yeah. So we won in our club a few months ago, and I did Tom Crean, the Arctic explorer from down in Kerry. Yeah, and I was just like, because I guess like Ernest Shackleton was a famous explorer, and we've had lads like that, but Crean was just a lad on his ship that was like the most vital person possible. But he was just like, I don't know if he could read or write. He would like fall into the ocean in Antarctica, get back out again, and try to keep working instead of going into the ship and drying off. Oh my god! It's just like, he made it.
Just hardy men.
Just a great lad. So we did that, and it was like, there was just so many. That's actually, I read a full book for that one. It's probably the first time I've read like just specifically just for like extra anecdotes. And I researched it for a week or two, and I was like, there has to be extra bits, because I knew everyone kept saying he was really funny, but nothing on the internet research had like any quotations. And was reading a book at the end of it, his wife was giving out to him about eating like meat on a Friday, because they were meant to be religious, and he's like, where I've been, I'd eat a scalp of your arse. I was like, right, that just means that he has like thousands of quotes that have been lost.
But can you imagine like a hardy old Kerry man, but also he's been to the Antarctic? You wouldn't be able to say anything to him.
Like 4 times. I think the ship got stuck in the ice at one point, and then they had to get one of the small ones off of it, bring it like, I don't know, like a month to like pull it through the ice, and then go off out to near the Falklands or one of those little islands, just on like a dinghy. So just like reinforced a dinghy, and he was like leading that, and they got there and he got all the way around it and saved everyone. And that's like, he did it multiple times. He kept going into, you'd think like one near death experience, you'd be like, do you know what? I've got like a wife at home. I'm gonna be gone for like 4 years at a time. But he just kept going back, and that story was so good. I'm like, anytime we've done gigs previously, it's been one and done, because we just put the gig up on the Patreon, and now it's like, that one was so good we might keep it and do it multiple times. So we might do that one if we don't have time to write anything else.
The last ones we've done here, like Carson and Casement, so stuff that people like a name that people like everyone knows that there's a statue outside Stormont.
Yeah.
But just kind of like, who is he? Or like
Yeah.
people know Casement Park, but like who is Casement? So stuff like that,
Yeah.
people kind of know. The aim is, I guess, afterwards you'll be able to walk around the city and be like, oh yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah.
about. So
It's a fun way to engage with history.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
also it's very close to WrestleMania, and isn't that Finley? Isn't it Finley? He's
Yeah.
So I want to do like the history of him, but not the man, just the character.
yeah.
Just his entire career.
That's
Yeah.
we really it is it is hard to like research stuff for every episode, but we also have such a wide, we can do whatever we want. We can just talk about WWE Castle, we can talk about a ghost that used to live here. We just made that shit up. Or you can talk
Love to do like a ghost podcast. That stuff really interests me. Like I
Yeah.
don't know why. As
I'm
soon as you
sure
mentioned it, I was like, I'm here for it.
I'm sure there's loads of ghost stories around that.
Yeah. And who would be above all, like you were saying, about the Antarctic Explorer, like who would be your favourite historical character that you've looked into to date?
Oh,
Put you on the spot here, but
because it goes through phases where I just want, like, I'll just be wrecking my girlfriend's head talking about one specific person.
yeah.
And if you ask me a question about them 4 months later, I'd be like, I can't remember. But like, I was obsessed with Roger Casement for a good while because he's the gay James Bond of the Congo. He's insane.
Yeah.
Like his story
What a
is
summary.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's what I've always loved about nonfiction is that there's like if you wrote some of the stuff that happened to him in a movie, I'd check out because like there's no way, that's unbelievable, that wouldn't have happened. But like just some of the stuff he was up to, it just makes it so much more interesting that it was real. But I don't know, who have you got? Roy Keane.
Oh yeah, we did Saipan, like 2002 World Cup, and
Right.
so we did like the history of like the FAI, which tied a little bit of the IFA into it, and then just like the football on the island, because I was like, he doesn't know anything about football, so I was like, I can't just jump into 2002. I'm gonna have to go back about 100 years to explain just everything, and then do like 88 and Italian 90 and World Cup 94, and then lead all of that up in 2002, and then like still try to keep a straight face where I was like, I'm being impartial, I'm not going to tell you which side of the debate I'm on.
Yeah. We did that one live somewhere in Dublin
Yeah, we did it in Whelan's
for the anniversary of Saipan.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 20-year anniversary.
Yeah.
So there's been, or we did James Joyce in the Temple Bar in the Wild Duck with Donald Fallon. He does Three Castles Burn, and he's like, he's on RT. It's like he's one of our cool hip young historians, and I was like terrified just because it's like he was just like a guest, like a third mic, and I was like, I have to do this whole thing, and it's like one of our most respected historians is right there, and he's willing to take the piss out of me if I'm wrong. But yeah, just managed to get through that, and then looking back afterwards, I was like, always got like an out of body experience. It was like I finished it, and I was like, I was just up there for like 2 hours. Just,
Oh my gosh.
He told a great story about, was it Joyce's dad who was a drunk and he was getting the tram.
Oh
He was getting the tram, and like the boys, he'd been out drinking all day or whatever, and his friends brought him to the tram and told the conductors like, now don't let him off until you get to Malone Road or whatever. And Joyce's dad was locked, and he kept trying to get up at every stop, and he's like, sit down there, man, we've got a couple more stops to go there. And they finally got to Malone Road. He's like, off you go now, Mr. Joyce, safe home. And he came back the next day, and he's like, I fucking moved house, man. I was living on the other side of the city. Kept trying to get off. He's like, no, hold it up. And he drove him like way out the south side.
Or his love letters to his Mrs. Laura Barnacle.
Oh,
that they're just pure filth.
Right.
Just saying he wants to like ride the farts out of her arse.
Oh,
he's like one of our great
He's all on
literary
record,
minds.
There's all of his love letters between the two of them, and he's just like, I'd fuck the farts out of you sideways. And we got to read them all out live in front of him.
He was the same as all of us.
Not so different.
Somewhere there'll be a statue.
I think Ulysses is just about getting a hand job in Stephen's Green.
Right.
Or Phoenix Park, something like that. That's like a big part of it, and it's kind of like, it's obviously it's about a load of other things, but that's kind of like the seminal moment.
Yeah. Right.
All of our great artists are also great perverts, which makes it fun to talk about them.
Yeah.
But we could do, for Belfast, we do Rory Gallagher.
Nope.
Nope.
He's from Cork / Donegal.
Yeah, we could. It's the meeting point right between the two of them.
I think that's how you get to Cork from Belfast. You have to go up to Donegal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I was in. Is it Donegal? Oh, flip me. It was ages ago. I think the last time I was in Donegal was with you. That was a long time ago. Holy moly. Yeah. But yeah, we should probably. I think we should definitely brush up on our Irish history, because I actually, you're mentioning names and I'm sitting here going, what? Like,
yeah, sure, you're only a young buck. You're born in '99. You're all
Yeah.
the same. It'll hit you once you get up near 30. You'll be like, I need to read about.
yeah, here's the crack.
Yeah.
Irish history.
Yeah.
You suddenly back up going, what the hell? No.
Oh, just when you mentioned Donegal, did you notice that on the bus earlier? We got the air coach up here, so it stops at the airport, and there's two lads in Belfast running late up to the bus, and your man at the bus was like, "Where are you going to, lads?" And they're like panting. They're like, "Oh, Belfast." Like, this is the Donegal bus, man. Belfast bus is gone. They're like, "Ah, what?" It's like, "I'm only messing." What a welcome home to the country. Just like, I'm only fucking messing. Go on, boys.
Is it, he was great crack. I had him when I came up on the bus on Saturday as well.
Oh, yeah?
And he did the exact same fucking joke.
Yeah.
He's just doing it every day,
Yeah.
every time.
Sitting
That's
down.
his bread and
Yeah.
butter.
Just
He goes home to the wife, got another feed in, eh? Yeah.
fucking Donegal bus.
It's sad he gets if someone just has headphones on and they don't hear it.
Yeah.
Just go and sit down. He's like,
They're
He does a comedy night or something.
Yeah.
Just loses it.
Ah.
But like, yeah, it's been absolutely a pleasure to have you on, and I definitely think you have put us to shame. I think we need to brush up more on our Irish history, and I think it's awesome that the live comedy nights and stuff and the live podcast nights. If you're in Belfast at that time, we'll put all the links and stuff in the description of the podcast. So, definitely, if you're about, go check us out. Definitely book your tickets.
Thanks for having us on, lads.
Absolutely no problem. Thank you very much for coming down. See you soon.